Hi, Eric. Yeah, I was
Because
gonna say, what a great presentation. I know I have just connected with Jill, so just wanted to give a shout out. A very well put together presentation. So no pressure, Elric, but you're next. I'm gonna introduce the topic first. We are talking about AI powered sales engagement masterclass. Well, not about it. We're doing the masterclass, AI powered sales engagement masterclass. If there is any one undisputed trend in sales technology right now, it's AI. And previous speakers have already talked and expressed their opinions on where to put or not to put AI in the sales process. With the amount of tools and tactics for AI powered sales engagement, we just can't leave this topic out. And I'm happy to invite Elric Laguar, SDR manager at Agora Pulse, as our next speaker. Nice to have you, Elric. Welcome, and please take it from here.
Thanks, George. And thanks for having me. So let me share my screen. And today, like George mentioned, we're going to talk about AI. And I'm going to give you how I use it as an SDR leader, but also more specifically for prospecting. So let me share. I'm going to share my screen. Yep. Up. Okay, so and really quickly also, I'm going just to introduce myself, so to give you some background about me. So I'm Eric, like George was mentioning. Right now, I just started a new role at Agora Pulse. So I'm building the SDR team. So I'm mainly focusing on the inbound side of the team and also building the outbound function. And on top of that, also, I'm the creator of the SDR game. So it's a media for SDRs where I have a newsletter and a podcast where I interview top performing SDRs. So today, we're going to talk about three things. Why I started to use AI for SDR teams, but for prospecting specifically. 4 ways I use AI for prospecting and building go-to-market strategies. And the last thing, I'm going to share with you a story how I booked my biggest opportunity in 2023 using ChatGPT, actually, because today I'm going to talk about that, but more specifically how I use ChatGPT, because that's the main tool I use for prospecting. So if we talk about why I started to use AI, so for me, it took me, generally, if I create a lot of content, it took me a few weeks, a few months after ChatGPT creation to start using it, not using it, but talking about it, because I was pretty, not concerned, but hesitant about using it. And I didn't know if it was going to help me for prospecting, because everyone was talking about it, but I didn't see a lot of people talking about if it was successful and how you could use it. So I was using it, but more in the background, not sharing if it was working or not. And in 2023, actually, I was working at a new company, Castor Doc. So it's a data catalog. So I was working with data leaders, so chief data officers, data governance leaders, for example. So really technical buyer personas. And that was the first time I was working with technical buyer personas. And I needed to learn a lot about this persona. And for me, I started to use ChatGPT actually to understand this buyer persona, to understand the ecosystem, because I was pretty new to this industry. And I think ChatGPT helped me really well to ramp up on this. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to understand quicker and what was relevant to my prospects. So that's how I started to use it. And for me, AI specifically and ChatGPT, for me, it's like my personal assistant that I can use when I need some help with really time-consuming tasks, for example, or when I want to, for example, translate. And I'm going to show you a few examples that how I'm using it, obviously. And everything that I'm going to show you today, I'm using ChatGPT 4 with the plugins and the broad function with Bing. So because I don't use the 3.5 version of it, so I'm paying for it. And everything I'm doing is with the ChatGPT 4 version. So the 4 ways I'm using AI, the first one is building an impact matrix, and I'm going to explain what is it. For example, building list of competitors of my customers, for creativity in my outreach, and the last thing is rewriting my emails. So if we talk about the impact matrix, what's the impact matrix? So that's something I learned from Winning by Design. So if you don't know what Winning by Design is, it's a company selling, they do sales training, but also a lot of consulting services, and they have a really good content around sales in general. And if we talk about specifically prospecting, they talk about the impact matrix. And the impact matrix basically is 4 things. The first thing on the matrix is the feature of your product. So what deliver the value that your feature. I'm sorry. If we focus about the features, we are focusing on the one that bring the most value to your customers. Then for each feature that bring the most value to your customers, we identify the pain points that this feature is going to solve. And then the third thing is the impact of solving this on the business. And then on top of that, we're going to add a story about a relevant prospect, because we want to use a case study, for example, from the customers to explain this. And I'm going to show you an example that I did a couple of weeks ago about Asana, for example. If we talk specifically about the first thing about the impact matrix, we are talking about the main features. And if we focus on those who drive the most value to customers, for example, we can see the main feature is quickly connect complex work across teams, for example. That's something that I learned by using ChatGPT, for example. The second thing is platform scalability. If we have an example here, it's Asana grows as your team's case, for example, allowing you to get more work done across teams with unlimited monthly actions, for example. And the third example will be robust features for business growth. We have specific examples here, drive cross-team efficiency or automate processes. And so here, that's the focus on the features. Now, still using ChatGPT, we can get the pains of this and the business impact. So for example, if we go back for the first one that was quickly connect complex work across teams, we can see the pain that's going to solve. So it's reduce the confusion arising from duplicate tasks, for example, scattered information and lack of visibility across teams. And what's the business impact of that is streamlined communication and collaboration, leading to faster decision making and reduce project delays. And the last thing that's going to help me with also is going to give me a story about how Asana specifically can help another customers with this. And here we have the customer story. So we have Christopher Bayard, general manager in San Diego at Uber, that said, Asana allows me to simultaneously manage teams across multiple markets. I'm able to ensure all my projects are on track. So if I'm going back to the previous slides, here we have basically one feature tied to the pain points, tied to the impact on the business, and then we have the story. And I did all of this with ChatGPT. And with ChatGPT now, basically having this impact matrix is going to help me thinking about how I could create my messaging, for example, or how I could write an email. So I'm using this specifically impact matrix, for example, when I want to start working for my new company, for example. So I'm doing this right now with Ago Apples at my new company to build the messaging and what we're going to say with outbound motion, for example. So the second thing, how I'm using it, and here it's, I was doing it a lot at Castor Doc, my company this year before joining Ago Apples, because I was going after a lot of enterprise companies, so companies with more than 1,000 employees. I wanted to know what was who are the competitors of my customers? Because if a competitor is using, a customer is using my solution, their competitor might be interested to use our solution also. So But the thing is, for example, for the first one, Vestia Collective is an e-commerce business in France. It's a pretty big one, and I don't know anything about them. So if I was going to go on Google and start doing that manually for each of my customers, it's going to take me a lot of time. So with ChatGPT 4, actually, I was using the version to go on Google or Bing, for example, and I was asking ChatGPT to use to find me 5 competitors for each one of my customers. That was the query for ChatGPT, and then that was the result, for example. So now we have for the two first ones of Vestia Collective and JW Player. I had the full list obviously for those, but just to show you the example, really quickly, ChatGPT is able to give me a list of companies that now I can target in my outreach because, yes, the goal of this is to save me time, but now I know those companies are relevant to me because if their competitors is, for example, the Real or Poshmark, for example, their competitor Vestia Collective, they are competing with them. And so if they are a similar size, for example, they might be interested to a solution because they want to know how Vestia Collective is going to manage their solution with us, for example. That was the second thing. So the first thing we talk about building an impact matrix. The second one is building a list of competitors of your customers. And this one specifically is pretty quick to do. It's more around building lists and building lists really fast. Now, another example, I was using it at CasterDoc. So I was going after, just to give you a why I was using this specifically, I was prospecting the gaming industry in the US, for example. A company I was going after was Riot Games. If you are familiar with video games, Riot Games, but if you're not familiar with the gaming industry, Riot Games is the company who is developing the video game League of Legends. And I was thinking about, hey, can I use ChatGPT to create some creative emails or creative outreach to them? Because the gaming industry, it's pretty fun industry. You want to be not focusing just only on your product or having a boring approach, I would say, because gaming generates video games and video games are fun. So I was thinking about, hey, what I can do with this industry specifically and going after them. So here, that's the query I am using with, for example, creativity to create some creative cold emails. So I'm going to read it. So act like the funniest stand-up comedian in the world. Write an email with 15 words or less that connect my prospect job into buying my product, but you make it very funny and must have a reference of League of Legends. My prospect is the head of data at Riot Games. My product is a data catalog for data teams. My prospect job, act as a change agent for the organization and promise them to become data-driven and digitally transformed. And don't include, I hope this finds you well, for example, because ChatGPT loves to use it, for example. And I'm going to show you what's the result of that. And here, that's actually for the email that ChatGPT gave me. So head of data, for example, so as a master of data at Riot Games, you're basically twisted fate dealing outcasts of digital transformation. Our data catalog help you and your team league hope like Casadin, making data-driven decisions faster than the Fed mastery. Ready to level up your data game? Let's talk and we'll show you how your product will carry your team to victory. This email specifically, it's not something that I've sent to them. I use it as a reference to send to them because obviously there is a few things that can be improved on it, but I find it really interesting to use because we are talking about my solution with a data catalog and how it can help, but talking about the video games that they are producing. So I'm showing here specifically, it's I know them and I understand the game. So on my side, I'm more someone who is focusing on processes, it's not that I'm not super creative, but here ChatGPT helped me with creating this email. And I tested a lot for Riot Games, for example. I have other version of this email, but I think ChatGPT was really good at giving me this first draft that I could use and talking to their data team, for example. So that was the third one, the third way I'm using ChatGPT. Now the fourth one is rewriting emails. So this one is going to be really quick, but I use ChatGPT a lot because I think ChatGPT is pretty good at helping you rewrite your emails if they are too long, for example. So here, that's an example. So that was an email I was sending at CasterDoc. I think the email was good, but I wanted to make it shorter, for example. But that's an example. So I asked ChatGPT to make it 50 words or less. And you have my first version on top of it here. And here you have the new version made by ChatGPT. And I found it pretty good because it's you're still using the same information. It's cutting some fluff that I had on my first email, and that's something that I use with a lot of my emails. So that's another way of using it. I think there is a lot of different ways you can use ChatGPT, but specifically for rewriting emails, I'm using it a lot of for translating emails into other languages. So English is my third language, for example. So and I use, for example, if I'm writing to, even though if I'm French and sometimes I'm prospecting in French, for me it's quicker to use ChatGPT to translate an email in English to French using ChatGPT, and I'm going to use to rewrite if it's not accurate. Just the version of ChatGPT, because I find it more quicker to use ChatGPT than me translating the whole email. And the last thing also is I use ChatGPT a lot for to fix grammatical errors, because I'm not native speaker in English, and sometimes I don't know how to write things. So I think ChatGPT is really good at fixing my mistakes, for example, in my emails. And obviously in your outreach, when English is not your first language, that's something you have to use. Obviously, I think you can do it in other languages, but that's the way I was using it. And now I'm going to share you a story of how I use AI and specific ChatGPT to book my biggest opportunity this year. So it was an opportunity of $75,000. So that was at CasterDoc, and I'm going to give you some context around how and why I did it this way for this company. So I forgot to mention that I have some, I would say, prospecting experience with a lot of different buyer personas. So today, here specifically, it's not focused on salespeople because I know a lot of content generally is more focused on salespeople. And here, I use ChatGPT a lot because sometimes the buyer personas I'm going after, they are not super active on LinkedIn, or they don't create content. So for me, it's hard to use something to personalize on about the person I'm going after. So I was a founding BD at CasterDoc, so it's a SaaS business. I was selling basically a data catalog. So not going to enter into details to what is it, data catalog, but I was selling to VP of data, chief data officers, BI leaders. That was the main buyer persona that I was going after. So generally, those prospects specifically, they are not super active on LinkedIn. So it's going to take me a lot of time to find, like, for example, something about all my prospects. So the way I was thinking about it is, because I was selling to large companies, I thought more about having a account-based approach with those accounts. And today I'm going to show you an example with Gong, because for example, at Gong, they have a data team of 30 people. So if you think about the BI leaders, the data engineering leaders, so they have 30 people. So if I can find information, for example, about one person, that's something I can use for the rest of the team. And that's what I did with Gong, and that's how I booked this meeting. So the first thing I've done with Gong, I went to Listen Notes. If you don't know Listen Notes, it's a tool that you can use. It's free. You can go to listen.com. I think that's the URL. you can research podcast episodes instead of using Apple Podcasts, for example, or Spotify directly, because it's going to give you more details about the episode. So, and I find it pretty useful. So first thing I do is I wanted to see if we could find podcast episode about the Gong data team. That's what I did. And I found one episode. That's the one I found. So it's a podcast about data engineering, actually. And because for me, it was really hard to find, I would say, information to use in my outreach. That's the only thing I could find about the data team at Gong. And with ChatGPT, actually, ChatGPT with the plugins that you can use, and I'm going to show you the plugins that I was using. ChatGPT can help read the transcript of an episode. So here I had the transcript, so it was easier. Sometimes you don't have the transcript, but for this one I had. So what I did with ChatGPT, I said, okay, now I found the podcast episode that I wanted to use for my outreach. I said, act like the best SDR in the world, read and analyze the transcript of this interview about Gong Data Team. So I gave the link where you can find the transcript. After reading and analyzing it, give me 5 initiatives or challenges that Gong is facing. Those 5 initiatives or challenges need to be relevant to my product, Castor, data catalog. You need to say why it's relevant, the challenge, and how Castor might help Gong with this. The 2 plugins I use for this specifically is WebPilot, because I use those 2 because sometimes the one is working, the other one is not. So that's why I'm showing those 2. So WebPilot and Web Request. So those 2, basically, if you give the URL, it's going to ChatGPT is able to read the URL, and then they can read the transcript on what you're saying. And here, that's a result actually of ChatGPT based on the query as I just show you. I'm going to just read the first one because I think it's pretty interesting. But after analyzing the interview with Gong Data Team, here are 5 initiatives or challenges that they are facing that relevant to your product, Castor data catalog. So the first one, data accessibility and understanding. Gong is dealing with a large amount of data, and it's a challenge to make this data accessible and understandable to all stakeholders. Castor can help by providing a unified searchable catalog of Gong's data assets, make it easier for users to find and understand the data they need. So basically, I was using ChatGPT to help me find those things quicker because I was pretty new to this industry and I was not sure if I was listening to a podcast episode what was relevant to my solution. Because sometimes I think I was working for solutions that were way much easier to understand how we can help a company based on a podcast episode, for example, and then reach out to them. But here, when I was listening to a podcast episode, I didn't know how to contact them. So ChatGPT was really good at showing me how Castor Doc, my solution, could help Gong. And here, that's an example that I wrote, for an email that I wrote, for example, to the data team at Gong. First part, mentioning the interview and the key takeaways from it, that was relevant to my product, obviously. The highlighting the challenge, explaining how we can help, and the call to action. So Yarin, that was the guest on the episode. So Yarin mentioned on the data engineering show that Gong is integrating data from various sources. This can be a complex and time-consuming process. Our tool can make it easier to integrate and use data from different sources. Can I get your feedback on what we're building? That's an option I've used. And then here, that's another one I wrote, a bit more technical than the first one, but I was using specific words that they used during the episode. So, hey, Yarin mentioned your team has advanced analytic access with PostgreSQL and Snowflake on this show. Data catalog, Castor helps your team find and understand data for analysis, with rich metadata and search capabilities. Let me know if you're interested in learning more. And they say yes. And it turned to be the biggest opportunity that the company got this year. And that's it. And that was it. That was basically the different ways I'm using AI and ChatGPT for prospecting. Like I said, I think there is 2 ways. So mainly for preparing your outreach and then for your outreach and make it more efficient. So if you enjoy this, you can follow me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my podcast or to my newsletter.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Elric. This is great. Thanks for your presentation. I like your approach. I like how you put in all of your maybe not all of your requests, but you put act like the perfect SDR in the world, or act like the best comedian in the world. That's such an obvious. I don't know how much it works, but it's such an obvious thing to put in there to try and improve on the results. Actually, we do have a couple minutes for questions, and one of those questions was, so you've shown us some great examples of how things work, maybe not necessarily the output that you would just take and put into your cold email, but you would take it as an inspiration, maybe rephrase certain things, add on certain things. But have you seen maybe areas where generative AI and ChatGPT in particular is not ready yet? So are there any major issues where you would say, no, Gen AI is not there yet, we still need SDRs, we're not, SDRs are not going anywhere?
That's a good question. So at the beginning, I thought it was the case because today, what I just showed you, the queries I'm using on ChatGPT, they are pretty, I won't say super, it's trial and errors. So I tested a lot. And so that's what I'm testing right now. And that's, I would say I'm pretty happy with the results. So at the beginning, I was not happy with it. And that's why I said it took me a couple weeks or months to start thinking about creating content about ChatGPT because of that, like what you just mentioned. Because if you just say, write a code Gmail for my product, well, the result is not really good. So that's why you need to give context, or like you mentioned, act like the best SDR in the world or the funniest stand-up comedian, for example.
Actually, yeah, the next one kind of stems from the first question, and it was, these are all from the chats, by the way. Thank you, guys. Thanks to everyone who's participating and asking your questions. But can you describe your workflow? So you said, it's trial and error. It's, you have to learn how to use it. Have you developed more of a workflow, like an algorithm of when to use ChatGPT in the process, maybe those plugins? What does that workflow look like, just generally?
I don't, because I am this year I was a solo. I was on a team, but I was not managing the team, so it was my own process, I would say. So, but right now I didn't start using it for the current team, but the way I'm thinking about it using ChatGPT with a team specifically is building three things: the research that you can do about your prospects, building lists of companies, because I show an example of how you could build this, for example. And the third one is in your outreach and how you could use it. So that will be the workflow. So how I'm going to do that is documenting it and training my team on it, and the different ways they can use it in their processes.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Elric. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up, but again, as always, if you're able to stick around in the chats, because there's quite a few more questions, and we're going to try to get back to all of those people after the event. But thanks again. It was a pleasure having you today, and we're going to move on with the next presentation, or panel rather.
Thank you, George, and thanks everyone for joining us. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.